In commerce, nothing is more important than earning a customer's trust. So today we're going to talk about why that trust is so important and what we can do to earn it. If that sounds good to you, grab a coffee and let's get into it. Hey, I'm Jason Retailgeek Goldberg. I'm the Chief Commerce Strategy Officer for the Publicis Group, so I get to work with many of the biggest brands and retailers in the world talking about commerce. And commonly I'm asked questions like, what e-commerce platform should I be running? What recommendation engine should we look at? What sort of CDP should we have? And while I'm always happy to talk about those sorts of software solutions, I like to remind clients that the most important software of all is the software that runs right here. It's our shopper's brain, and understanding the psychology of this guy and how it impacts purchase decisions is more important than anything else. So this is going to be a 4-part series talking about 4 related critical trends in cognitive psychology that are critical to commerce success. Now is a great time to tell you about 2 of my marketing heroes, Don Peppers and Martha Rogers. In the early 90s, they wrote an amazing book called One-to-One Marketing that sort of perfectly predicted how we would all be marketing to consumers digitally in the 2020s. And about a decade later, they came out with a new book in 2012 called Extreme Trust. And essentially the premise of Extreme Trust was that nothing was more important to commerce success than establishing trust with customers. In fact, they defined the lack of trust as a more than $1 trillion a year problem for businesses. And their hypothesis was that the old playbook for earning trust was no longer sufficient in the fast-paced modern world, and that companies would have to adopt this extreme proactive practices to earn and keep the trust of their consumers. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. One of the proof points that I like to look at is this great study that Nielsen used to run every year called the Global Trust in Advertising Study. And essentially, they would do a survey of over 50,000 consumers all across the world, and they would list all of the activities that marketers had available to them to build their brand and build awareness for their companies. And they asked consumers how much they trusted each one of those activities. And interestingly, every year, the results were very consistent. Consumers perfectly sorted the list for us. The things that consumer trusts the most are the things that we have to earn, like recommendations and ratings and reviews. The things they trusted in the middle were the things that we own, like our websites and our email lists. And the things that consumers trust the least are the things that we can pay giant advertising agencies to do for us. So this is super interesting, and this was very consistent over a number of years. But I always like to remind people that stated customer preferences is not my favorite kind of market research. So much of purchase decisions are subconscious that I just am not confident that when you ask consumers to explain something, they can articulate exactly what goes into their purchase process. So I'm much more interested in what I call observed preferences. What can I see that teaches me about how consumers are thinking and acting? And so I want to give you an example of an observed behavior in the trust space. I want to tell you about an amazing feature that Walmart added to their e-commerce site almost 10 years ago. And the feature is called Buy Online, Pay with Cash. And it sounds kind of funny to even say, buy online, pay with cash? What the heck is that? Oh, well, Jason, a significant minority of Walmart's customers are underbanked. They either don't have a credit card or they don't have available credit on their credit card. But Walmart sells many more products online than they do in their stores. They have about 120,000 SKUs in a superstore. They now have almost 80 million SKUs online. So many of those underbanked customers might like access to the online assortment if only they had a way to do e-commerce without a credit card. So the Walmart IT department did a significant amount of heavy lifting to enable a feature where customers could shop on the website, click Pay with Cash, and receive the goods without using a credit card. And that experience was phenomenally successful. By many reports, as much as 4% of all Walmart sales use this pay with cash feature. In 2021, Walmart will potentially sell about $63 billion online. 4% of that is around $3.5 billion of sales from people using this feature that Walmart rolled out called Pay with Cash. And I want you to think about that customer experience for a second. You're sitting at home on your couch in your pajamas, and it suddenly occurs to you that you need to get a loved one a gift. And of course, the ideal gift to get any loved one is one of the greatest inventions of all time. It's the big mouth Billy Bass. And for those of you unfortunate enough not to be familiar with Billy, Billy is a fish that you hang on your wall, and when you push a button, Billy sings.
Well, they I like just hanging around. But I made this.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? Letting the days go by, let the water hold me down. Letting the days go by, water flowing underground into the blue again. After the money's gone, once in a lifetime, water flowing underground.
And now you can even get Billy with Alexa enabled. Now, unfortunately, for some inexplicable reason, many retailers only sell Billy around the holiday season. And your loved one's birthday isn't during the holiday season, so you can't walk into a Walmart store and buy Big Mouth Billy Bass. But you can buy it from the website. So you grab your tablet in your pajamas on your couch at home, you browse for Billy Bass, you find them on the website, you put them in your cart, you click checkout, you click pay with cash. Now you have to get dressed, get in your car, drive 5.5 miles to the nearest Walmart, park in what is statistically speaking some of the most dangerous asphalt in the world, walk into the store, say hello to the greeter, get in line behind 3.5 other people, pay, go home, and wait for Billy to arrive so you can give the most amazing birthday gift ever. Now, that's an amazing experience. It's an amazing success story for Walmart that they were able to meet their customer needs. But there's one very interesting wrinkle in this whole thing. Guess what over half of all the customers do when they get to the front of that line at the Walmart checkout? They take out a credit card and pay with a credit card. What? $3.5 billion worth of sales happen when someone clicks pay with cash and then they go to the store and pay with a credit card? Jason, if they were going to pay with a credit card, they could have just typed the credit card into their tablet at home and saved that whole trip, never got out of their pajamas. Why would so many customers use the pay with cash feature when they had available credit? Well, the answer may be obvious to you based on the topic of this video. $3.5 billion a year in sales at Walmart happen from people that don't trust websites with their credit card. Think about that. Walmart is the largest company in the world, and people are afraid to type their credit card into Walmart's website. Now, ironically, typing your credit card into that website where it's encrypted and tokenized is vastly safer than handing it to a clerk in a store that may have a skimmer underneath her counter and steal your credit card number. But that's neither here nor there. A huge amount of customers don't trust the largest company in the world with their credit card, right? And if they don't trust Walmart, they don't trust any of us. Think about your personal experience. How many of you watching this video have shopped at one of these retailers in the last 4 years? Well, it's a trick question because even if you haven't shopped at one of these retailers in the last 4 years, your credit card number has almost certainly been breached, right? Because even the credit reporting agencies like Equifax have been hacked. And the vast majority of all consumers' credit card information is now available somewhere on the dark web where thieves are trading that information and committing identity theft. And so it's no wonder with consumers constantly getting these emails saying that they've been breached and that they should keep an eye on their credit reports that consumer trust in e-commerce is eroding, right? I want you to think about one of the most famous retail breaches in the United States of America. It happened a number of years ago at Target. And an interesting fact about that breach is after Target was very publicly breached and lots of customers lost their credit card information, ironically, the breach didn't happen online and no one lost their credit cards online. This was an in-store breach that eroded trust in Target and caused a huge amount of Target customers to never come back. And that was enormously expensive to Target. So earning and maintaining trust is critical to success in commerce. And there's maybe no story that's a better example of this than an entrepreneur in China named Richard Liu. And in 1998, Richard decided that there was a great opportunity to sell consumer electronics at all of these consumer fairs, these consumer electronic fairs that were going on in Beijing. So he could go to a manufacturer and buy a box of CD-ROM drives that were very popular in the late 90s, and he could go to one of these fairs and rent a stall, and he could sell his CD-ROM drives to consumers. And so he started a company called Jingdong Century Trading, and he was selling CD-ROM drives at one of the electronic fairs in Beijing. And that business became successful. He started selling at more fairs. Eventually, he opened his first store. And then by 2003, he actually had 3 stores open. But something horrible happened in Beijing in late 2002, early 2003. They were impacted by an epidemic called SARS. This may be painfully familiar to all of us watching this video now, but this was a major health crisis in China, and it caused an economic lockdown, and all of these consumer fairs were closed. So Richard Liu had all this inventory of CD-ROM drives that he had paid the manufacturer for, that he needed to sell in order to repay for his inventory, and he had access to no customers. So in a fit of desperation, he went onto some of the social media sites and bulletin boards in China, and he offered to sell his CD-ROM drives to consumers through these bulletin boards. E-commerce in China wasn't a thing in 2003. Less than $10 million in total e-commerce was happening in the country back then. And unsurprisingly, he had no success selling these CD-ROM drives. In a final throw of desperation, he took one more step. He went to some of his customers that had bought CD-ROM drives from him at the fairs, and he said, "Hey, I need a favor. I'm trying to sell my CD-ROM drives on these bulletin boards, but customers don't know me and customers don't trust me. Would you be willing to go to my ad on that bulletin board and write a testimonial that says I'm a real person and I'm reputable and I'm trustworthy?" And in fact, he was able to cajole some customers into doing just that. And it ultimately allowed him to get some traction, sell through his inventory, save his company. And after the SARS epidemic, he reopened his business, but he decided that the future was not in going to these festivals or opening stores. It was selling consumer electronics online through this new mechanism called e-commerce. And so Jingdong Century Trading became Jingdong.com, JD.com, which is now the second largest e-commerce site in China, which is the largest e-commerce market in the world. So one of the biggest e-commerce retailers of all time was born out of this brilliant tactic of using customer testimonials to establish trust at the height of a crisis, right? And these are the kind of tactics that Don Peppers and Martha Rogers are advocating in their book, Extreme Trust. And these are the kind of tactics that we all need to be thinking about. How much trust we have with our customers, what things we're doing that's eroding that trust, and what things we could do to proactively earn that trust. And for those of you that maybe don't have time to read Extreme Trust, I'm going to summarize the best advice in the book for earning trust. And that advice is the next time you have a meeting where you're talking about your programs, your policies, your trade practices, bring an extra chair to that meeting. And imagine that your best customer is sitting in that chair. Now have the same conversation you were going to have before. Discuss how much margin you're going to try to seek on this new product, how much inventory you're going to buy, what your return policy should be, what fees you can charge for delivery. Whatever business process you're trying to solve that involves the customer, imagine having that conversation with your best customer in the room with you. And if you're like most of us, the conversation you would have in front of the customer is very different and more guarded than the candid conversation you'd likely have with your colleagues if no customers were present. And the point that Don and Martha are making is that is a fallacy. That every time you do make one of these business decisions, every time you do have one of these conversations, in the modern digital age, your customer is in that room with you, right? That someone that works in that room is going to work for a competitor tomorrow or share a story with a family member, and that's going to end up on Twitter or Pinterest or Reddit. And it's going to be impossible to have any secrets in this modern era. So if your trust with your consumer is predicated on your ability to keep things secret from your consumer, that you likely aren't built for the kind of extreme trust that's going to be required to be successful in the modern era. Instead, if you're able to have the same conversation in front of the customer that you would have without the customer, then you likely are adopting the kind of extreme trustworthy behaviors that are going to be required to earn trust. So that's the first principle of this 4-part series, is about earning and retaining trust. The next 3 parts are all going to talk about specific tactics that we can use to help lock that trust in. I hope this was valuable to you. If it was, I hope you'll check out the other parts of the video. You can help other people discover these videos by clicking that like button and subscribing to my channel. And until next time, happy commercing.